Commissioner Phillips talks the ACC lawsuits and the ESPN agreement.
The ACC lawsuits are always in the news, so we're back on the big mountain to break it down for you.
Hey, it's great to have you here on the mountain again. I'm JY. This is my good friend Steve. Steve, we have a small episode here, but I want to talk about Commissioner Phillips and some comments that he made. They just had their spring meeting here this week, and so really nothing with detail with the lawsuits, but we really haven't heard from the ACC outside of their lawyers. So I thought it was good to talk a little bit here about what Jim Phillips had to say. So just closed their spring meeting on Wednesday, and there was a couple questions about the lawsuits, the potential exits of FSU and Clemson from the ACC. He called the lawsuits disruptive and harmful. He said that the lawsuits have not changed how the conference interacts with these two schools or how they are treated. He stated that he feels the relationship with both universities can be salvaged. Also, no one from North Carolina has reached out to him at this point. He described the past trustee comments in North Carolina. That I think there were just some new ones this week about the exiting and looking for greener pastures or whatever. But anyway, he says this is campus discussion and campus politics, maybe state politics. Anything on that, Steve? And then I want to get into some comments he mentioned about the ESPN contract.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, like you mentioned, there was some more rumblings out of North Carolina. They had one specific trustee making some noise, and then what was kind of strange was there was a board of trustee meeting going on at the same time these ACC meetings were going on, and the trustees there called for an audit of the entire athletic department. They basically pointed out that the finances of the athletic department were in shambles, and they basically said, how are we going to continue with this revenue stream if we don't have an increase in revenue? And they kind of threw the athletic director under the bus. So he was down at the meetings with Commissioner Phillips and all the ADs and all the presidents, and he apparently he got back on the bus after they rolled over him and drove back to North Carolina. And I agree with the commissioner. This is a matter in North Carolina of campus politics and state politics until they figure out what they're going to do.
Yep, for sure. So let's get into some comments he had on the ESPN contracts, and this was very interesting to me. The wording and the way he described what FSU has called this option to extend by ESPN. But he first commented that the TV contracts are strong. The relationship with ESPN is strong. Let me rephrase that. The TV contracts aren't necessarily strong, but the relationship is strong with ESPN. He stated that he cannot go into details, but that the partnership is not going away or been negatively affected at all given these lawsuits, according to him. He says the ESPN deal runs through 2036. Again, he says the ESPN deal runs through 2036. Remember, FSU claims that ESPN has an option to extend through 2036. And there's been some back and forth on giving that option an extension for them to either accept or deny. So we have two different things going on here, and I think this is the beefiest part of this episode. Phillips says that this was a look-in clause, not an opt-out clause, but just a look-in clause. And they are working internally with ESPN on a piece of the contract, and he cannot get into details. So a look-in clause is very different than either an opt-out or an opt-in or whatever you want to call that kind of get-out-of-the-agreement type of clause. So I found it interesting that he's calling this a look-in and that the contract truly goes through 2036. I want to talk about that here with my opinions, but I'll throw it to you first in terms of what this looks like.
Yeah, I'll say I think that verbiage, that look-in clause, seems to be pretty standard verbiage in the media industry, or at least the sports media industry, because I hear that all the time and see that with other media deals that they have the option to look in. And basically, what does that mean? Well, generally, and obviously we haven't seen this agreement yet, and we're trying. Well, not we're trying, but Florida State, South Carolina, other places are trying to get it out to the public. But generally, it means that the parties can go in and kind of take a look again.
Right.
Is this working out for us? What do we want to do? But we don't know what powers are in there. Can they opt out? They might be able to opt out, and maybe Phillips is just trying to put a more positive spin on it.
Could be.
Or maybe they have the ability to just change the contract.
Right.
If things have changed or whatever, and maybe it gives the ACC the ability to change the contract or get more favorable terms midway through.
Right.
Who knows? We haven't seen the contract, but I would just say I'd throw a little bit of cold water on him. He's the commissioner. He's trying to present this great. Look, we saw the Pac-12 commissioner talking big talk until midnight the night before the conference fell apart. So they're an advocate. They're trying to basically say everything is fine, everything is good. He's calling it a look-in clause. I don't know if that really is I don't know if that is actually significantly different. None of us know at this point if that's significantly different than a real opt-out.
So the very first thing I thought when I was typing this up to have an episode with both of these, the lawsuits and the ESPN contract, things that he's saying, it was like almost 12 months ago, right? Almost a year ago. It's what we were hearing out of the PAC commissioner. Everything's good. We're on the same page. A media deal's coming. I mean, I hear this. Yes, it can be salvaged. Our relationships are great. Everyone is being treated equally and fair. Like, it's just so reminiscent of what we were hearing from the PAC. Now, I'm not saying this is the same, what the same fate is going to behold the ACC here in 3 months. I'm not saying that. But it is, considering where we just came from, it's interesting to hear these words and phrases in a time when the ACC, where there's clearly issues going on, and not just with these two schools. So
fantastic point. It's like deja vu all over again. And here's the thing: the PAC fell apart. Not because the schools didn't like each other. And we saw the commissioner, or not the presidents, talking to each other, and mostly nice and cordial to each other until things totally fell apart. So they didn't fall apart because they just didn't like each other anymore. They fell apart because they couldn't get a TV deal together. I mean, that was the problem. Now the ACC has a TV deal, but we're in this phase of we have two parties trying to blow this TV deal up. We have a look-in period. So there's also talk about needing 15 members, and whether that's the original 15 members or did the Stanford, Cal, SMU meet that need for 15 members? Who knows? So I think we're at a very tenuous period, and like you said, it might not happen the same way. The ACC learned a lot of lessons, over the last year. What happened to the PAC? And maybe their contracts and their agreements are stronger. Maybe they can stay together. But it's very reminiscent of last year at this time.
And then I would say, and you're gonna hear me. You just were speaking about what the presidents were saying. I have some comments from Florida State's AD that was at the spring meeting, kind of sounding a little bit like what the president said in the PAC coming out of it. I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk about this look-in piece and my opinion on this. So I would say we don't know. Nobody knows. We haven't seen the contract. Clemson now has seen the contract. That due date was done. They're supposedly supposed to have it right now. But if it's a look-in, and I'm going to equate this to similar to what we saw with, let's say, the CFP, right? The college football playoff, there's a look-in clause in, was it 2028? Is that right? 2 years from now?
I believe so.
4 years. That's 4 years from now. And there's a look-in to see, what the environment is at that time. And is that what this is? Is that a look-in to see if, you added 3 new teams? What are the value of these teams? Did you lose anybody? What's the value of losing these people? Now, they haven't lost anybody yet, but is that the type of look-in that they're talking about? Or is it truly what we've been reporting and what FSU claims? It's a true opt-out clause, that if they don't extend this, they're done. And you go back and talk about some of the episodes that we've done, and the email that was sent out by the commissioner the day before he approved extending this time frame leads me to believe that who would care if it's just a look-in? Why would he do that if it's just a look-in? Now, maybe he did, and maybe that's why it's a big ball of, it's a nothing burger, as you said before. We have no idea, but I did find the way he's couching this to be very different than the way FSU has been saying things, time will tell. I think we will get an answer to this, though.
Yeah, and there's got to be some kind of powers. Otherwise, what's the point of a look-in?
Mm-hmm.
But how limited are those powers? Can they just totally opt out?
Yeah.
And I think with this, it's the commissioners obviously trying to paint it a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is fine
Yeah.
here. And FSU and Clemson, those are trying to leave and trying to blow this thing up, maybe possibly on their way out the door, are painting it in a different picture. So we'll see.
So Michael Alford, the FSU AD, was asked about the relationship with the ACC and whether or not it was salvageable, kind of similar to what they asked Commissioner Phillips. He responded by saying, "We will just wait and let it play out. We have had great partners and great relationships, but we have to do what is right for FSU and make sure we are able to be successful." So to get back to what you were saying about they didn't hate each other, right? And he's literally saying that we have great partners and great relationships. He's talking about the members of the ACC.
Yeah.
But we have to do what's right for FSU. That's where we're at right now. That's the environment we are in. So. And
you and I have talked a lot about the difference between fans, boosters, supporters, and the decision makers.
Yeah.
As the farther you get up on that decision maker tree, now you have the coach, you have the AD, you have the president, you have the trustees. Generally, the farther you go up, the more you have to look at the big picture, and they can kind of detach themselves emotionally. They should be able to make a smart decision with their brain and not with their heart.
Right.
Obviously, Florida State fans, you and I have both spent time on War Chant. They want to. The Noles fans are on the war path for sure. They want to burn this freaking place down. They're pissed off. They got left out of the playoff, and they believe that a big part of the reason why is being in the ACC. They're pissed off that they're getting left behind basically by the SEC and the Big Ten. Their rival Florida is going to be making University of Florida going to be making a lot more money than them. Right. Alabama, all these schools, Georgia that they want to compete with, they feel like they're getting left behind. They're pissed off. They want to burn the place down. The decision makers at Florida State, they're upset too, but maybe not at that emotional level. And they're looking at this is, we're falling behind financially. This isn't the best fit for us. What can we do? What do we have to do to get in a position where we can compete with those programs at the level we think we're at?
Right.
And right now, with the situation we have in the ACC, is not working. So we need to figure out a new situation. So you can really see a difference in those two positions, from the fans, supporters, boosters, to the decision makers.
For sure. I totally agree. And we're going to end this episode because we can't not talk about one of the judges. I want to talk about Judge Cooper in Leon County. He did issue his written order to dismiss with leave to amend, and also granted the motion to stay discovery in Florida. He just issued that this week. I don't know the exact date. I believe it was Monday. I haven't been able to get a copy and read that yet. Might do that over the weekend if there's some interesting tidbits in there. Maybe do an episode on it like we did with the motion to stay. We'll have to just wait and see. But now that we know that that is complete, FSU's deadline to file their amended complaint is now May 22nd. So next week, FSU has the deadline to refile their complaint. It's going to be interesting to see what they add to this complaint. Not just the piece, the reasons under jurisdiction why he dismissed it, but it's kind of a rework. It's a redo. As we've said before, what are they going to put in there through the Mecklenburg County cases, through the Clemson cases and Pickens? What else are they going to choose to either add or kind of amend some of what they had put in there before? And I should also say, also hearing from Judge Cooper on some of this, right? They know right now where Cooper's big 2 or 3, I'm not going to go over it, we've talked about it on previous episodes, but what he's really focused on, and I would think, not only are they going to justify and rectify the issue of jurisdiction, but they are going to take the holes where they see, the biggest holes that they see right now, especially with this judge, and try to make them as big as possible. So really anxious to see what they do in this complaint.
Totally agree. I'm a little surprised at how long it took for this written opinion to come out. I think it was it April 22nd when he issued the verbal order?
Was it 22nd, 29th? I don't know.
Somewhere in there. So this took a long time.
22nd sounds right. It was the 9th was the first one. So
So it took a long time, and both you and I said, hey, this is going to be a race. This is a race to get to a final verdict, final decision, whatever. Well, if it's a race, the judges don't know that, because they're just moving at their own pace. I do. I want to say one thing. I love our viewers, the comments that we get.
Yeah.
Sometimes just people pissed off saying, Steve is an idiot and what the hell JY talking about, whatever. But a lot of times we get really good informed comments that they kind of they educate us, but also they lead us on other paths. So we got a comment recently about Leon County, something I did not know. And so one of our commenters said, the reason all of this is being done in Leon County is Leon County, it's a special court there. Judge Cooper, basically in Leon County, all state matters have to be held there. If it deals with a state entity, the Department of State, a state university, government entity, it has to go through Leon County. And I think the commenter pointed out back in, when we had the counting chads, the Gore versus Bush, that played out in Leon County, even though the controversy was happening down in Miami-Dade and Broward County. The hearing was in Leon County. So I did a little bit more research. I want to look into this some more as we go along. But they were right. It appears they're right that basically this court, we talked about North Carolina, Judge Bledsoe is the business court. Basically, this is the governmental affairs court in the state of Florida. So it really does make a lot of sense. We were talking about what a difference North Carolina, Judge Bledsoe's court, where they're looking at this simple contract matters, whereas Judge Cooper really seems to be focused on the state of Florida, property rights, what do we call that? Sovereign immunity, all of those big state level matters. There's such a big difference, and that appears to be why. So I'm going to be looking into that more as we go along with the ACC and Florida State cases. I think it's really fascinating. So I appreciate our viewers, our commenters, when they give us some tidbits like that.
For sure. We read all the comments. We don't reply to all of them to be sure. We read them all. Really appreciate, especially the boots on the ground down there. I know we have a ton of Florida, Georgia, Florida State alumni, Florida State fans. They're in the state of Florida or Georgia and surrounding areas there. Love hearing from you guys down there. We get your emotions, and be respectful, but you can certainly get your emotions into the comments as well. We fully appreciate that. And Steve, I'm going to just let our viewers know we are expecting another special guest. We're going to hopefully record with him on Sunday. We'll get it out next week. No, it's not Doug. We had Doug on a little bit ago. Maybe we can get him back if things start churning around here again. But we have another special guest that we're going to be bringing on. So check that out. We'll see what people say about this. I don't know. I'm anxious to hear what he has to say on specifically the North Carolina cases.
Okay, I'm interested.
All right. So, hey, with that, make sure you give this one a like. Subscribe if you like our content. We'll see you guys next time on The Big Mountain.